The great spiraling orbs of the cosmos looked upon them with silent sympathy, or so it seemed to Nyra as she stood on the observation deck of the Obsidian spacecraft. Her silver-blue skin, marked by the intricate patterns of her lineage, glinted faintly beneath the subdued lights. Standing just a few steps away, Selis, her younger sister, pressed slender fingers against the window, her gaze lost in the swirling nebulae they passed. Neither of them had spoken for the last hour. Words felt too small for the bitterness and heartbreak that had settled in the corners of their hearts. They were exiles now, both labeled as dissidents, cast out from the opulent cities of Zepharion, their homeworld known for towering crystal spires and nearly boundless intellectual pursuits. In a single moment of political decree, they had been stripped of their family name, their possessions, and all they had known. It was a punishment of almost unthinkable cruelty, one so rarely imposed in Zepharian society. Banishment to a primitive planet. Nyra closed her eyes. She could recall the official hearing. Before them, a tribunal of elders in stately robes, their solemn faces set in stone, pronounced the verdict. Her father's eyes glistened with tears, yet he did not speak out. The elders claimed that Nyra and Selis were a threat because of their dangerous ideas. Most Zepharians believed in perfect conformity, a seamless communal mind that tolerated no individuality. But Nyra and Selis spoke openly of free will. They pressed for creative expression beyond the standard templates. They argued for love, not as a commodity or fleeting game, but as a personal bond that could transcend physical and mental barriers. The price for such beliefs had been steep. "You will be exiled," the head elder had said, voice echoing in the grand hearing hall. "Sent to an underdeveloped planet that suits your primitive notions of individual sentiment. Henceforth, you are no longer of Zepharion." And so, they rode in silence through the blackness of space. The spacecraft, sleek and constructed from a mysterious alloy, had been provided by the Council, though not out of mercy. It simply ensured their comfortable deportation, guaranteeing that the two sisters would remain alive and well until they landed on their new cosmic prison. There would be no chance of returning. The craft was programmed to land and then disable itself entirely. Selis exhaled, the swirl of her breath fogging the transparent panel. "Do you think we'll ever see father again?" Nyra placed a hand on her sister's shoulder, feeling the quiver of the younger woman's tension. "I wish I knew. One day, maybe. But for now," her voice trailed off. They both stared at the looming sphere on the navigation display. Earth, with its swirling blues, greens, and whites. Zepharian knowledge bases described Earth as technologically fragmented, emotionally chaotic, and fiercely independent. But for the two exiled sisters, the planet represented both a captivity and a chance. For the first time in their lives, they might move freely without the stifling shadow of the elders. Their spacecraft hummed, sensors calibrating to Earth's atmospheric composition. Slowly, the gravitational pull reeled them in, and the hull began to glow with friction. Through the window, they watched thick clouds pass in swirling banks of silver and gray. Lightning flickered far beneath them, revealing glimpses of a vast, dark ocean. The descent was smooth, orchestrated by advanced Zepharian technology. It was well past midnight when they finally touched down in a desolate field, the wind bending tall grasses around the metallic hulk. The engines hissed and dimmed. Instrument panels flickered, then shut down with a final beep. The spacecraft had performed its sole mission. The hatch slid open. A rush of unfamiliar air hit them, tinged with rich soil and the scent of recent rain. Beyond that lay the darkness of this foreign planet. Yet in the sky above, faint pinpricks of starlight offered a semblance of comfort. Selis clung to Nyra's arm, fearful but curious. The sisters stepped onto the soft ground, their light footsteps swallowed by the hush of night. They had not been standing outside for more than a few minutes, wondering where to go, how to communicate, and if Earthlings would receive them with kindness, when a glaring light cut through the gloom. The beam of a searchlight pinned them in place. Instinctively, Nyra drew her sister behind her. Her heart pounded. They had read about Earth's militaries, known for suspicion of anything unknown and quick to brand intruders as threats. A stern voice cut across the distance. "Stand down and put your hands where we can see them." Nyra froze. They had practiced some Earth languages for their exile, gleaned from old knowledge transmissions, but everything still felt so alien. Another voice barked orders in the background, and more men appeared, heavily armed and wary. In the thick of the tension stepped a tall figure with short-cropped hair. He held his rifle, though not with hostility, rather with caution. Flickers of curiosity crossed his rugged face. "Identify yourselves." Nyra swallowed. "We are visitors," she managed in halting English. "We seek refuge." At that, muffled laughter came from one or two of the armed men, but the tall figure silenced them with a motion of his hand. He stepped forward, perhaps recognizing a plea, though he kept the searchlight on them. "I'm General Ethan Briggs, United States Air Force. You've come an awful long way. And that spacecraft behind you," he nodded to the obsidian craft, "doesn't look like anything we have on Earth." He sounded neither panic-stricken nor overtly aggressive, only cautious. It was enough for Nyra to calm her trembling voice. "We are from Zepharion," she began, measuring each word. "We have been exiled. We mean no harm." For a moment, there was only the rustle of grass and the hum of energy from the searchlight. Then, lowering his weapon, Briggs let out a breath. "All right," he said, though his gaze flicked warily to the craft. "We'll bring you in under watch, of course." With that decision, their earthly fate took its first shaping. The sisters were taken to a restricted military base, escorted in separate vehicles. Soldiers surrounded them, tension thick in the air. Yet there was no harsh interrogation, no immediate brutality. Instead, a mixture of curiosity and guarded respect permeated the atmosphere. After all, these two pale, silver-blue women did not look particularly menacing, especially not with the wide, frightened eyes they both wore. General Briggs oversaw the initial medical exams. He introduced them to doctors and scientists, who scanned their physiology, tested their vital signs, and marveled at the complex patterns etched into their skin. The doctors discovered that Zepharion biology was remarkably similar to humans, albeit more efficient in certain respects. It became quickly apparent that Nyra and Selis were no threat in terms of disease or contagion. The next challenge was bridging the communication gap. Though the sisters had rudimentary English, it was slow going. They relied on translation devices embedded within slender wrist cuffs they had managed to hide beneath their simple garments. Over time, with the help of Earth linguists and their own fervent desire to be understood, the sisters became more fluent. General Briggs had the power to confine them harshly or exploit them as potential weapons. But to the sisters' relief, he did neither. Instead, he arranged secure accommodations in an unused section of the base, far from the eyes of the public, and personally checked on them. His background had taught him to view the world in strategic terms, but beneath that exterior lay empathy. "This isn't going to be easy," Briggs told them one morning in his plain, functional office. Gray walls, steel furnishings, and faint coffee scents lingered. "The higher-ups are suspicious. We need to prove you're not hostile." Selis, who had taken to Earth's languages faster, nodded shyly. "Thank you for your kindness," she said. Briggs tapped a pen against his desk. "I'd like to believe that it's not kindness so much as caution," he said, though the corners of his mouth twitched into a small smile. "But you're welcome." Over the following days and weeks, a routine developed for Nyra and Selis. They would wake up in their modest quarters, bed, table, lamp, small window with bars they could not open, then proceed to a canteen area to eat. They were introduced to Earth's variety of foods, though both found some dishes strange and overwhelming. Next came sessions with linguists, scientists, and occasionally with members of the intelligence community. Their story of exile was repeated more times than they could count. Despite what could have been a dreadful captivity, the sisters found small joys. They marveled at the sounds of birds in the early morning, the distinct shift of sunlight through their window, and the subtle differences in how Earth people expressed themselves. Gradually, the base's staff grew accustomed to their presence. And so, two young soldiers, Jason Carmichael and Aaron O'Neill, were assigned as their primary escorts and guards. The arrangement was practical at first. Jason and Aaron kept watch and ensured the sisters did not wander off or breach any protocols. But an unexpected friendship began to blossom. Jason was tall, with sandy brown hair and a quiet demeanor. When he wasn't on duty, he would bury himself in books, classic Earth literature, and modern science journals. The first time Nyra saw him reading in the corner of the canteen, she recognized the expression of rapt concentration. It reminded her of herself back on Zepharion when she immersed in data crystals about Earth's music and art. Curiosity drove Nyra to approach him. She did not know the right words at first, so she merely pointed to the book's cover and said, "What do you read?" Aaron, on the other hand, was jovial and extroverted, quick to laugh at the smallest joke. He had bright green eyes, a warm smile, and an occasional stammer when anxious. He took it upon himself to teach Selis Earth slang. The younger sister was both amused and confused by the colloquialisms Aaron threw at her. She would tilt her head, eyebrows knitted, and ask for explanations. The soldier would do his best, often ending up in comedic gestures to illustrate meaning. Their laughter soon became a familiar sound in the otherwise stern corridors. In these interactions, Nyra and Selis found a glimmer of the individuality they had always craved on Zepharion. Here, among humans, who were rumored to be chaotic and unrefined, there was warmth and color, stories that brimmed with raw emotion. The sisters began to feel alive, but not everything was so simple. A team of covert scientists prodded the sisters with endless questions about Zepharion technology. Though Nyra and Selis tried to be cooperative, they were guarded. Some knowledge was too precious to share, especially details that could be twisted into weaponry. They had already witnessed how ruthless their own elders could be. What if Earth's governments or militaries proved equally dangerous, turning advanced knowledge into instruments of conquest? Meanwhile, news of the sisters' presence spread quietly through certain ranks of the Pentagon. Not everyone was enthusiastic. Some considered the sisters a threat, suspecting they might be scouts for an alien invasion. Others saw them as living, breathing keys to technological dominance. A tug-of-war brewed in back rooms and secret meetings. However, perhaps the strongest proof of the sisters' innocence was how fervently they sought to learn about humans. When not under official observation, Nyra and Selis roamed the perimeter of the base, always with Jason and Aaron in tow, to observe daily life. They would greet soldiers, marvel at passing airplanes, and even volunteer to help in the base greenhouse, tending to earth plants. Over time, more and more personnel grew fond of them, their initial suspicion giving way to cautious acceptance. General Briggs watched this gradual integration with reserved optimism. He noted how Jason and Aaron's rapport with the sisters improved morale, how the sisters themselves had begun to smile more, carrying themselves with quiet dignity. Briggs had served in numerous foreign deployments, witnessing how bridging cultural gaps could defuse tensions. Perhaps bridging worlds was not so different. As the months edged onward, the swirl of daily routines gave way to deeper, more personal exchanges. Late one evening, as Nyra stood beside the chain-link fence that marked the base boundary, Jason approached her. The hum of distant floodlights played across his face. She had been gazing up at the stars, thinking of home, her father, and the heartbreak of exile. The ache in her chest felt heavier than any physical weight she had ever known. "I thought I'd find you here," Jason said softly, hands in his pockets. Nyra swallowed. "I was recalling how, on Zepharion, our nights would carry certain vibrations through the air. We'd call them the hymns of twilight. They were comforting." Jason nodded, though he had no direct frame of reference. "We have our own music here. Different styles, different eras. Some people say the cosmos has a music all its own, a frequency we can't quite hear, but can sense sometimes." He paused, searching her face. "Do you miss home?" The question brought tears to Nyra's eyes. "I miss my father, the places I used to study, the crystals that lit our city at night. But I don't miss the feeling of constraint, the fear of speaking my mind." She trembled slightly. "Here I am free. Yet it's frightening, too." Jason dared to reach out and place a comforting hand over hers. She felt warmth pulse through her entire being. For a moment, their eyes met, and an unspoken understanding passed between them, a fragile bond forming in the hush of night, beyond language, beyond species. Meanwhile, in a different part of the base, in the long corridor lined with utilitarian doors, Selis and Aaron found themselves locked in conversation. Selis clutched a small notepad filled with sketches of earth flowers. "I never thought I'd see so many colors," she mused, flipping a page. "On Zepharion, we have our own flora, but it's curated and controlled. with everything grown according to strict guidelines. Aaron scratched his neck, a shy grin forming on his face. Earth is chaotic like that, he said, but sometimes chaos is beautiful. Selis caught his gaze lingering on her. She felt an odd flutter, an awareness she had never before experienced. Something about Aaron's openness, the way he treated her like both a friend and something more, made her heart race in a curious, exhilarating way. Do you think I'm strange?" she asked hesitantly. Aaron chuckled. "Strange? Sure, maybe in a cosmic sense," he teased, then softened. "But no, you're just new, different, and that's not a bad thing." In the weeks that followed, what began as an exchange of friendship grew into a deeper attraction, though none of the four truly named it at first. Love, after all, was complicated on any planet, and for these alien sisters, who had been exiled for believing in the sanctity of individual bonds, the blossoming emotions felt both wondrous and terrifying. Nyra found herself longing for Jason's presence. She searched for reasons to ask him about Earth's customs, about the books he read, about the meaning behind his faint, almost melancholic smiles. She watched how easily he interacted with his fellow soldiers, how a simple nod or wry grin could convey camaraderie. Though he was reserved, there was a quiet strength in him that drew her in. Selis and Aaron, on the other hand, were more visibly taken with each other. They exchanged jokes, teased one another about mispronounced slang, and found themselves walking together even when there was no reason to. More than once, a passing officer would glance at them, a knowing smirk forming on the officer's face as the pair hurriedly separated. General Briggs saw it too. He noticed how Nyra's and Selis's once guarded expressions now softened around Jason and Aaron. He observed the unspoken magnetism, yet he said nothing, uncertain whether to intervene. Perhaps, he reasoned, it was better for unity that the sisters found comfort in these friendships. However, life on Earth was about to be upended by a threat from beyond the stars. Unknown to them all, the Zepharion Council had not simply washed their hands of the sisters. They had done so publicly, yes, branding Nyra and Selis outcasts. But privately, the Council feared what the sisters might reveal, especially regarding the advanced technologies of Zepharion. They worried that Nyra and Selis's radical ideas could spread. In the hidden council chambers, certain elders clamored for a final resolution. The eldest among them, draped in ceremonial robes of shimmering gray, made a decree: eliminate the threat. So they dispatched a squadron of Zepharion warriors, led by a cunning commander named Orith. These warriors were specialized operatives, their minds deeply embedded in the communal link. They needed no external devices to coordinate. When one thought of a strategy, the others instantly knew it. Their orders were clear: find the exiles and ensure they could never divulge the advanced secrets of Zepharion. Days later, on a bright Earth afternoon, the first sign of infiltration appeared. Base sensors picked up an anomalous reading above the atmosphere, something that shimmered, then vanished. General Briggs, alerted by his staff, grew uneasy. Meanwhile, at the far edges of the base, an incident rattled the quiet routine. A patrolling guard was discovered unconscious, with an odd burn mark on his uniform. Whispers of sabotage spread through the ranks. Nyra and Selis felt an unsettling disturbance in the air, a subtle resonance only a Zepharion could detect. One evening, as they strolled past the hangars, Selis froze, eyes widening. "Nyra," she gasped, "do you feel that?" The communal link, like a faint echo. Nyra's face paled. The sensation reminded her of home, but it was twisted, darker, a lethal undertone. "They're here." Jason and Aaron exchanged worried glances. "Who's here?" asked Jason, stepping closer. Nyra turned to him, voice trembling. "Zepharion warriors. They must have come to kill us." The words fell like a hammer. A knot of dread coiled in everyone's stomach. Aaron was the first to speak. "No, that can't be right. Why would they do that?" Selis swallowed. "Our people fear us, fear what we stand for. They'd rather erase us than risk the chaos of individuality spreading." General Briggs was informed immediately. He tightened security around the sisters, doubling the guard detail. But if the Zepharion warriors were truly among them, cloaked by advanced technology, no standard defense would suffice. The next few days were fraught with tension. Strange occurrences multiplied, Shorted-out surveillance cameras, tampered locks, fleeting glimpses of silver-blue figures that melted into shadows. And then, late one night, the real strike came. In a coordinated assault, the Zepharion warriors disabled the base's external power grid with a silent EMP pulse. Alarms wailed as backup generators flickered to life, but parts of the perimeter were left vulnerable. Under cover of darkness, Orith and his squad swept in, their suits shimmering with adaptive camouflage. They moved with inhuman grace, subduing or bypassing soldiers with near-effortless skill. Within minutes, they had infiltrated the building where Nyra and Selis were quartered. Hearing commotion in the hallways, shouts, bursts of gunfire, the hum of advanced weaponry, the sisters huddled behind overturned furniture. Jason and Aaron, armed with rifles, stood protectively in front of them. At last, Orith himself, a tall Zepharion with stark, white patterns marking his forehead, emerged from the corridor. He leveled a glowing staff-like weapon. His voice, cold and resonant, filled the space. "Nyra, Selis," he commanded in Zepharion. "Step forward." Nyra clutched Selis's hand, her heart pounding. She met Orith's gaze. "Orith, we know why you're here." He inclined his head curtly. "You have betrayed Zepharion. The elders decree your knowledge must never fall into the hands of these primitive creatures." He glanced at Jason and Aaron with obvious contempt. Jason aimed his rifle, defiant. "Leave them alone." An eerie smirk tugged at Orith's lips. "Ah, the Earth Protectors. Brave, but foolish." With a flicker of his staff, a pulse of energy erupted. Jason and Aaron leaped aside, but the shockwave threw them against the wall. Nyra cried out, lunging forward. "Stop!" She held up her trembling hands. "This is wrong. Our beliefs do not threaten Zepharion. Your fear threatens it." Orith advanced. "We do not fear you. We simply enforce the will of the elders. The fate of outcasts and traitors is sealed." But the sisters would not go quietly. They might have been exiled, but they were still Zepharion, and they possessed certain inherent abilities that Earth technology had not fully understood. Channeling a focused mental strike, Nyra latched onto Orith's communal link. She could feel the minds of the other warriors bridging through him. It was like tapping into a subterranean current of lightning. Selis joined her, adding her own mental frequency. It was an act of desperate unity. Their minds weaved together, forging a blockade that momentarily disrupted Orith's link to his squad. Jason and Aaron, shaken but conscious, took advantage of the momentary confusion. Together, they tackled Orith, grappling for control of his weapon. A fierce struggle ensued. Orith, stronger and faster, flung them aside. But Jason managed to wrest away Orith's staff, aiming it back at him. A swirling vortex of light erupted from the staff. Orith dodged, but the corridor walls splintered, sparks showering the floor. More Zepharion warriors arrived, weapons at the ready, only to confront armed Earth soldiers scrambling to contain the situation. A chaotic skirmish exploded in the corridor, alien energy blasts intermingling with the muzzle flashes of rifles. General Briggs, hearing the turmoil, rushed in with reinforcements. Smoke clouded the halls. Shouts of "stand down" in English mixed with harsh commands in Zepharion. Nyra and Selis, pinned behind an overturned desk with Jason and Aaron, felt the ground quake from the blasts. Desperate to end the fight, Selis cried to her sister, "We have to do something." Nyra nodded, sweat drenching her brow. "We can sever their link. If Orith and his squad can't communicate telepathically, they'll be weaker." Selis knew this was risky. The communal link was a powerful channel, and trying to hack it could tear at their own minds. But they had little choice. Summoning every ounce of courage, they reached out together, like two voices in a cosmic choir, targeting the psychic network that bound the Zepharion warriors. A surge of energy seared through Nyra's consciousness, almost overwhelming her. Selis's mental presence braced her. They could sense the warriors' minds all at once, a swirling hive of thoughts, trained to function as one. They pushed, forging a wedge of chaotic individuality into the rigid structure. For a split second, the warriors faltered. Their formation broke, confusion flaring in their eyes as they lost their telepathic coordination. The Earth soldiers, seeing the opening, pressed forward. Stun grenades and tear gas erupted, disorienting the already unsettled Zepharions. Orith roared in anger. He lunged once more at Nyra and Selis, but Jason and Aaron intercepted him. With one swift motion, Jason landed a solid strike to Orith's midsection, while Aaron disarmed him of a dagger-like weapon. Disoriented by the mental interference, Orith staggered. "Now, Briggs!" Jason shouted. General Briggs, flanked by heavily armed soldiers, advanced. "Stand down," he ordered Orith, leveling a high-powered weapon. But Orith refused to yield, letting out a burst of raw, telekinetic force that slammed Briggs against the wall. Incensed, Jason lifted the alien staff once again. He unleashed a blast that crackled with shimmering energy. Orith, his defenses compromised, took the brunt of the strike full in the chest. A cry tore from his throat as he collapsed to the floor. His pale eyes flickered, and he sank into unconsciousness. The remaining Zepharion warriors, reeling from the severed communal link and the disorienting gas, dropped their weapons. A wave of relief and lingering terror washed over the corridors. Slowly, the chaos subsided, and the staff lights turned from flicker to steady glow as the base's main power was re-established. Nyra and Selis knelt, trembling with exhaustion. They had just helped Earth's forces repel a Zepharion assault. Jason and Aaron sank beside them, breath ragged. General Briggs, bruised but upright, surveyed the scene with stern gratitude. In the aftermath, the base was secured. Medics rushed to tend to the wounded. Orith and his squad were taken into custody, placed in heavily guarded holding cells. Engineers pored over the alien weapons. Yet the question of what came next loomed. If one strike team had been sent, perhaps more would follow. Earth was now unmistakably on Zepharion's radar. A debriefing took place at dawn. In the briefing room, lit by sterile fluorescent lights, Nyra and Selis recounted everything. Why they were exiled, how the Council had grown paranoid, and how Orith's mission was likely just the beginning. General Briggs and a group of high-ranking officials listened intently. "We can't allow Earth to become a battleground," Briggs said gravely, looking around the table. "But we can't turn Nyra and Selis away either. They helped defend this base, and we owe them for that." A hush settled over the room. The Earth officials exchanged looks of concern, well aware of the gravity of harboring exiled aliens who might draw more deadly visits from beyond the stars. But in the end, perhaps guided by a moral compass or the sisters' proven loyalty, the consensus was to extend them sanctuary. "It won't be easy," Briggs warned Nyra and Selis. "You'll have to keep out of the public eye for a while, especially if more Zepharions come. We'll work on a strategy to deter any further attacks." The sisters nodded, relief mingling with apprehension. They still felt the raw ache of their confrontation with Orith, the knowledge that their own people had tried to kill them. Nonetheless, a spark of hope flickered in their hearts, fueled by the compassion they had witnessed among Earth's defenders. That evening, as calm finally returned to the battered base, Jason invited Nyra to the greenhouse. The space was quiet, the plants illuminated by soft grow lights. There, amidst the gentle buzz of fans and the scent of damp soil, he turned to her, shoulders tense with emotion. "I was thinking about everything that happened," he began. "You risked your life to protect us, to protect this place. You and your sister could have tried to run, but you stayed." Nyra's eyes glistened. "Because we have something to stay for," she said, her gaze locking onto his. "On Zepharion, we believed in love and individuality. We were branded as threats for that belief. But here," she hesitated, her cheeks flush with a soft hue. "Here, I feel that belief could actually come to life." Jason exhaled slowly, as if releasing a burden he'd been carrying. "Nyra, when I look at you, I see a person, an incredible person. Not an alien, not a threat, just someone who's been through more than anyone should have to bear." He stepped closer, gently taking her hand. His voice shook slightly. "If I'm honest, it goes beyond friendship for me." Nyra's heart pounded. She thought of the cold hours spent in her cell after they first arrived, the suspicion in the eyes of the soldiers around her. Now, in this gentle warmth, she felt acceptance, something that defied species or planet. "Jason," she whispered, "I feel the same." Their hands interlaced. Nyra leaned forward, and in that tender moment, they shared a first, tentative kiss. It was shy and full of unspoken promises, a blossoming of everything they had yearned for. Elsewhere, Selis and Aaron wandered the length of an empty runway. Stars overhead glinted in the cool night. Aaron tried to make sense of the roiling emotions in his chest. He had rarely felt so protective of anyone, let alone an extraterrestrial. Yet Selis had awakened something in him, a sense of wonder, hope, and vulnerability that he had long buried. "You must hate us," Selis said suddenly, her voice trembling, "for bringing danger to your planet." Aaron shook his head. "No, I'm just furious at how your own people treated you." He paused, staring at the faint starlight reflecting off her silver-blue skin. "And I'm worried. Worried that they'll try again, that next time we might not be able to stop them." Selis swallowed, tears glistening in her eyes. "Sometimes, I feel guilty for bringing you into this." Aaron gently brushed a tear from her cheek. "No guilt. You didn't ask for any of this. Exile, threats, and you've risked your life to protect us. That's worth more than any regret." He mustered a small smile. I care about you, Selis. That's not going to change no matter what your people do." A soft sob escaped her lips. She pressed closer to him, seeking solace in his arms. They stood that way for a long time, under the infinite sky, as the distant hum of the base resonated behind them. In the weeks that followed, the battered base recovered. Zepharion infiltration attempts ceased, for now, though the possibility of another attack loomed. Earth's governments quietly exchanged intelligence, forging contingency plans in case more alien incursions occurred. Nyra and Selis were relocated to a more remote facility, designed to be both safe and concealed. Jason and Aaron voluntarily transferred to the new location, determined to remain close to the sisters. Days turned into nights. Nights turned into the hush of dawn. The four found themselves bound not merely by circumstance, but by deepening affection. They stole quiet moments in hallways and gardens, forging memories that glowed brighter than the uncertainty that surrounded them. Yet, amid these blossoming feelings, a new challenge arose. High-ranking officials within Earth's coalition grew restless, urging that the sisters share every detail of Zepharion technology. "We must be prepared," they argued, "to defend ourselves. We can't rely on guesswork." Nyra and Selis were torn. They understood Earth's need for defense, especially now that their own people had launched an assault. But they also feared unleashing advanced technology that could be misused, leading to catastrophic ends, on Earth or elsewhere. One day, a tense meeting took place in the new facility's conference room. Generals, scientists, and diplomatic representatives sat around a rectangular table. Nyra and Selis, flanked by Jason and Aaron, faced the onslaught of demands. "If there's a chance another Zepharion strike is coming," one general barked, "we need advanced weaponry to match theirs." "But such technology could devastate your planet if used irresponsibly," Nyra protested, voice shaking. "Zepharion energy weapons are highly unstable in the wrong hands." One scientist leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. "We're not talking about distributing them to the masses. We're talking about a controlled military application, a deterrent." Selis closed her eyes. "That's what our elders claimed too, at first. It starts with deterrence, and then escalates. Our entire society ended up subjugating anyone who dared challenge uniformity." The debate roiled on. Tempers flared. Anxiety thickened the air. For a moment, it seemed a rift might form between the sisters and their Earth protectors. But Jason spoke up, stepping into the verbal fray. "We owe Nyra and Selis our gratitude," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We can't force them to share knowledge that could potentially lead to more destruction." Aaron nodded. "We should work together to find a balanced approach, not just demand that they hand over secrets." Eventually, General Briggs raised a hand for silence. His gaze swept the room. "I understand the need for preparedness," he said, his tone measured. "But let's not forget why Nyra and Selis were exiled in the first place, because they fought for a principle of freedom and individuality. Let's not become the very thing we criticize. We must respect their boundaries." With that, the tension in the room eased, though the underlying concerns did not fully vanish. A compromise was reached. Nyra and Selis would assist Earth scientists in developing limited defenses, enough to safeguard the planet if another Zepharion team attacked, but not so comprehensive as to trigger a new arms race. It was an uneasy arrangement, yet all parties recognized it was necessary. So the sisters volunteered bits of knowledge, carefully curated. They helped enhance shielding systems and offered insights into sensor arrays that could detect Zepharion craft before they entered Earth's atmosphere. They withheld the designs for advanced weaponry, however, despite the grumbles of some military hardliners. In the midst of these negotiations, life went on. Nyra and Jason grew even closer, sharing conversations about Earth's history and future ambitions. Jason introduced Nyra to classical piano music, Chopin nocturnes that left her breathless. She, in turn, showed him a small Zepharion crystal that, when held in certain light, emitted soft, haunting tones, a relic of the hymns of twilight, she once mentioned. Selis and Aaron spent time exploring the facility's nature reserve, a man-made ecosystem that housed diverse flora and fauna. Aaron delighted in teaching Selis about the various plants and small animals, and she reveled in the unregulated abundance of color and life. Often, their laughter drifted among the leaves, a testament to the wonder of cross-species connection. But shadows of doubt remained. Would the council remain quiet, or were they merely regrouping? Could love truly thrive under the constant threat of another invasion? Nyra sometimes woke in the early hours, consumed by nightmares of her old life, of elders condemning her, of Ortha's cold gaze. Selis too found herself haunted by the mental echo of the communal link, the place that once welcomed her and now would destroy her without hesitation. Their human companions did what they could to soothe these fears, promising protection and devotion. Yet the unpredictability of fate loomed. One crisp morning, a diplomatic channel unexpectedly lit up with a cosmic signal. It came from a deep space vantage point, carrying a unique Zepharion signature. Cautious, the Earth Command Center decoded the message. It claimed to be from none other than Nyra and Selis's father. In the secrecy of the command room, Nyra and Selis listened to the transmission with bated breath. Their father's voice, strained and filled with regret, spoke in Zepharion. "My beloved daughters, I cannot stand by while the council hunts you. I have pleaded for mercy, but the elders remain resolute. Another, more powerful battalion readies to depart. Flee, if you can, or find a way to stop them. I am sorry. I love you both." The message ended. A silent despair weighed upon the room. Another attack was imminent, larger, deadlier, and unstoppable by conventional means. Jason put a hand to his forehead. "We barely stopped the first team. How can we possibly fend off an entire battalion?" Selis wiped away tears. "We can't. Not in direct combat." Nyra looked up, her eyes suddenly fierce. "But perhaps we can reason with them. If we can reach the root of their fear." General Briggs exchanged glances with his staff. "We can't rely on reason alone. You said it yourself. They're determined to eliminate you." A tense debate followed. Some officials demanded an immediate evacuation of Nyra and Selis to a hidden facility or off-planet if possible, though the latter was more fantasy than reality, given Earth's limited space travel technology. Others suggested trying a diplomatic approach, though none knew how to broker peace with a society that disdained individuality. Finally, Nyra and Selis revealed a desperate plan. If they could broadcast a strong enough telepathic wave from Earth to Zepharion, bypassing the Council's external communication filters, they might inspire seeds of individual thought among the general population. It was an incredibly risky gambit that could either topple the Council's power or provoke an even harsher crackdown. General Briggs was skeptical. "That sounds like you're trying to start a revolution on your homeworld." Selis looked down, her voice soft but resolute. "Perhaps that is the only way. If our people understood what we've learned here, love, acceptance, diversity, they might question the Council. And if they question the Council, the battalion might stand down." After much deliberation, Earth's leadership, guided by moral qualms and strategic logic, agreed to support the plan. It required constructing a powerful telepathic amplifier, something only partially outlined in Zepharion archives. Over the next frantic weeks, scientists worked with the sisters to build the device, repurposing satellite arrays and specialized materials that echoed the designs of the sisters' now-dormant spacecraft. Meanwhile, the cosmic threat drew closer. Reconnaissance satellites picked up subtle anomalies near the edges of the solar system, likely advanced Zepharion ships approaching stealthily. Tension rippled through the base, an unspoken worry that Earth might face a war that would devastate both sides. At last, on a stormy afternoon, the telepathic amplifier stood ready, perched atop a secure installation. Dark clouds churned overhead, electricity dancing through the sky as if nature itself recognized the gravity of the moment. Nyra and Selis, clad in newly fashioned Earth uniforms that allowed for free movement, ascended a metal stairway to the amplifier's platform. Jason and Aaron followed, hearts hammering. General Briggs joined them there, earpiece crackling with updates from the command center. 2 minutes until the alignment is set, he said, voice taut. We have some unusual readings at the outer solar system. Nyra and Selis exchanged a glance. They stepped forward, placing their hands on the device's contact pads. A surge of latent energy crackled around them. Rain began to fall in heavy drops, plastering their hair and clothes to their bodies. Focus, Nyra whispered to her sister. We have to send a message of freedom, of hope, something that will stir their minds. Selis nodded, closing her eyes. They began to channel their thoughts, weaving them into a tapestry of memory, emotion, and aspiration. Through the device, these thoughts transformed into a telepathic beacon aimed directly at Zepharion. You do not need to fear individuality. We were exiled for believing in love, in the right to be unique. But we have found life, friendship, and understanding on Earth. Free yourselves from the chains of conformity. Listen to our voices. Their combined mental outreach was agonizing, like 1,000 needles pricking their minds. The amplifier strained, and arcs of static leapt from its metallic spires. Yet they persisted, pouring their very souls into the message. Far away, beyond Earth's skies, the approaching Zepharion battalion received the telepathic wave. Some crew members recoiled, others cried out in confusion. Their communal link rippled with new sensations, alien concepts of love, friendship, and self-determination. The battalion wavered. Some ships held formation, others faltered. Then, in Zepharion's capital, ordinary citizens suddenly felt a spark of emotion they had never allowed themselves to indulge. Faint echoes of the sisters' broadcast cut through the council's mental filters. A gentle stirring of curiosity began, branching into pockets of quiet rebellion. In the council's chamber, alarmed elders demanded the immediate severing of any external link. But it was too late. A subtle shift had already taken root. Though the council remained in power, the illusions of their absolute control had fractured. Back on Earth, the amplifiers sputtered and collapsed under the strain. Nyra and Selis slumped to their knees, utterly spent. Jason and Aaron rushed to support them, sheltering them from the pouring rain. In the command center, anxious voices confirmed that the incoming Zepharion battalion had halted just beyond lunar orbit. No attack came. For hours, Earth waited, breath suspended. Finally, an encoded signal arrived. A single line in Zepharion language, stand by. Our orders are being reevaluated. A wave of relief cascaded through the base. Tears of joy and disbelief marked the faces of Jason, Aaron, and General Briggs. Nyra and Selis, still recovering, exchanged a trembling smile. Their message had reached the hearts and minds of at least some Zepharions, enough to stay the council's hand. In the weeks that followed, a precarious détente formed. The council, battered by internal dissent, pulled back from an immediate strike. Earth and Zepharion established an unsteady channel for dialogue. Nyra and Selis, no longer condemned as traitors by all, still could not return to Zepharion safely, but a new glimmer of possibility emerged. Perhaps, in time, negotiations would reshape the fate of both worlds. Meanwhile, the sisters and their human companions continued to forge their own paths. For Nyra and Jason, their bond deepened as they faced the nightmares of war and the dreams of a more hopeful tomorrow. In quiet corners of the base, they would share an embrace, reminding each other that love was possible across any boundary of star or species. For Selis and Aaron, their playful banter evolved into a profound connection, binding them through the trials of battle, the wonder of discovery, and the promise of a future that might be shaped by their own hands. As Earth gradually learned to coexist with the knowledge of a vast alien civilization, and as Zepharion simmered with the first sparks of change, Nyra and Selis found themselves at peace with their new home. They had discovered more than refuge on this primitive planet. They had discovered love, friendship, and the precious gift of self-determination. Though the path ahead remained uncertain, one thing was clear: the sisters were no longer alone in their exile. Standing at the threshold of a new era, they held the hands of two human soldiers who had become far more than mere companions. Together, they stared into the cosmos, unafraid. At sunset one evening, under painted skies of gold and lavender, Jason and Aaron led Nyra and Selis up a small hill near the base, overlooking a quiet lake. The water reflected the clouds above, rippling gently in the breeze. Softly, Jason took Nyra's hand, while Aaron did the same with Selis. "Look how far we've come," Aaron said, voice hushed. Selis pressed closer to him, warmth flooding her chest. "So far, and so much more to see." Jason's gaze locked with Nyra's. "All I know is, I want to face whatever comes next with you by my side." Nyra's heart fluttered. "And you," she whispered. There, in the tranquil hush of twilight, the four stood side by side. The threat of distant stars had not vanished, nor had the complexities of interplanetary diplomacy. But in that moment, love triumphed over fear. They were free to hope, free to choose, and free to dream of a life that transcended the divides of worlds. And whether the ending was truly happy or merely the calm before another storm, it was, at least for now, a beautiful testament to what could happen when courage met compassion, and when two exiled sisters dared to discover love among the stars. Author's note: in the final hush of dusk, as the star-strewn sky stretched overhead, Nyra and Selis, once exiled and branded as traitors, found a sanctuary among the very beings they had been taught to dismiss as primitive. In turn, Jason and Aaron, two humble soldiers, opened their hearts to the mysteries of the cosmos, proving that empathy is boundless. Though challenges await, both on Earth and in the distant halls of Zephyrion's council, this moment of peace and unity stands as a testament to the power of love and individuality. In time, perhaps, other walls will crumble and new alliances will form. For now, with the gentle hush of the wind through the leaves, the story settles on a quietly happy ending, one shaped by the conviction that freedom is worth any price, and that no boundary, whether etched by distance or decree, can overcome the simple, dazzling brilliance of love.